going to read your bio because, you know, Sallee, it was interesting. So we met 1 year ago, and you and I were just talking about this. 1 year ago, you were in Bold, and this was the week that COVID actually became the pandemic. And I remember being in Bold with you, just going, we actually had no phone. We were in the middle of a storm. We couldn't leave, so we didn't even know what was going on. And I just remember you in Bold just being this hungry, curious, just let's do this, like let's lead. And walking out of Bold, everything changed. And you got into like this action mindset of what can we do? You were actually my first interviewee, but we didn't do it live through Leadership Now. We actually just did a Zoom, and I recorded it and I posted it later. But you had started this program where you had this brilliant idea of how do I connect businesses with frontline workers, and you created, and it came into Modally Cares. So there was restaurants that were feeding the nurses and the doctors at the front line, and just looking at just who you are, you know, looking at your bio, you know, when it says that you have spent over 20 years in the business to business technology space, from large scale storage areas, networking labs to enterprise analytical platforms. You have been driving, building technology across your career. You have saved billions, ladies and gentlemen, that's with a B, billions of dollars in energy, operational expense, and capital expense for owners and operations managers. You know, it's not just the technology space. When I tie into the Modally Cares, your brain is just like this computer chip that loves to create efficiency and effectiveness in systems. And you have this ability to connect ideas to people, ideas to business, ideas to customers. And your brain is always going, well, what can we do? How do we get more efficient? Some of your, and I was reading your bio and I'm just like, wow, you're like a pretty big deal. So you led the development, and for those of you who know the technology industry, the UL 8750 standard for LED lighting, the UL 1598C standard for LED Retrofit, the UL LightSmart App. You worked closely with the EPA to develop the Energy Star certification program. Holy cow, fostering high efficiency products into the market. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And I'm just like, wow, you know, I never knew that part of you. And when you said, because every Leadership Now, I say, you know, if you want to be a speaker, let me know. And you said, I do. And I'm like, you want to come back? And you said, yes. And I said, what do you want to talk about? Because it's always your topic. Is whoever is the speaker, I let you choose what you're passionate. And you said, Molo. I'm like, what is Molo? So, and we're going to get into that in a moment, but I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for just being this curious mind that loves to share, that loves to connect the dots. And I would love just for you to start off, tell us just a little bit about yourself, what I missed.
Yeah, well, you're quite kind, and I'm feeling very humbled by your kind words, Mary. So I'll start with this. I'm a recovering software engineer, so that's where the computer chip thing comes from. I started my career in the .com era, and in doing telesales and inside sales activities. And I have a technical degree. I have an information systems degree and a business degree. And when I graduated, the whole world exploded. I mean, the whole .com thing happened, and it literally busted as I was graduating. And so I've sort of spent my life having to sort of reinvent and find opportunities to grow. At that point, I was literally doing software development. My roommate and I had started a small company, and we were building WordPress wasn't a thing at the time, but it was essentially a WordPress site for Qdoba, the Mexican restaurant. And it was a marketing site that allowed restaurants to order the supplies that they needed, marketing materials that they needed, menu boards, table cards, these sorts of things. And the marketing team at Qdoba could put their orders in, they could put the artwork in, they could do all the things. And what I sort of realized is we basically coded ourselves out of a job, because we made it so easy for them to do this themselves, that they didn't really need us beyond the code. And when the dot-com bust happened, I decided that, you know, software development was very feast or famine. And so the business side was much more appealing. I just love being with people and spending time with people. And you know, and as you look at some of the things that I've done, they've all been very focused around growth, and starting from almost nothing or nothing and being very comfortable there and welcoming that and wanting to be in that environment and creating. And so that really is where a lot of my sort of internal adrenaline pump comes from, is that desire to create.
So how do you, and this is totally off script, and I told you I'll do this.
Yeah, it's okay.
What do you do to create on a daily basis? I mean, how do you fill that tank?
Yeah, so, you know, you and I were talking before this, and I've spent a lot of time working on my why it matters and understanding what is my internal motivator. And what I've decided and determined, and it's still changing, and I think that's normal as a leader, but what I've decided it is my internal motivation comes from empowering others to create. I love seeing progress. I love seeing people grow. I love seeing projects grow. I love seeing business grow. I love just that progression and that forward motion and the newness that sort of comes with it. You know, you're sitting on a train and you're going into the mountains on a train, and you've never been to the mountains before, and you look out the window, you just have this rush of new coming at you. I love that experience, and I try to bring that into everything I do.
Do you think of yourself as a highly creative person?
I think of myself as normal. I think my wife would describe me as harebrained. So I think the combination of those two things probably is creative, but I do like to create, and I would say I think of myself more as a creationist than a creative. If that makes sense.
So I just read, I've been reading this book by John Maxwell called Thinking for Change. And there was a survey that he had posted, and it was on creativity. So the survey, they surveyed all these people, and they said, it was a 40-year-olds first, they said, how do you see yourself, or do you see yourself as a highly creative person? And only 2% said they saw themselves as a highly creative person. So they started going backwards. At 35, where did you see yourself? Only 2%, 30, only 2%. And they kept going backwards until they got to 7 years old. At 7 years old, they said at 7, there was 10% that felt that they were highly creative. When they were 5, 90% of all these people surveyed said that they were highly creative. And it was interesting because there's something that happens between the time of 5 and 7 that 80% of these people no longer felt that they were highly creative. And it's whether it's through image, whether it's through experience, whether it's through something that happens, all of a sudden the belief changes and says, I can't do that. And listening to you and the creative mindset, you're one, I would put you as one of those 2%ers, but we all have it. And it's how do you tap into that creative mindset? And that just blew me away.
Yeah, that's a shocking statistic. I mean, I'm surprised by that too, the 2%. I think it just comes with positive association. I've always enjoyed the process of nothing to something. Both of my grandparents were involved in construction and growth. My dad was involved in startup work for a portion when I was growing up. He and I were always working on something, be it a carpentry project or on the house or something. I mean, it just always in a creation mode. And I think that the more you practice it, even non-professionally, the easier it becomes. And so I think even small moments of creation sort of fuel that positive association to create. And I would just encourage anybody to do whatever you can to create, whatever it is, big or small, because I think that sort of creates that sort of snowball effect of awakening that creativity. It does for me, at least.
Well, and it's in every single person. You know, there was another study that talked about the Crayola, brand. And prior to 2004, 10-year-olds on average used up over 790 crayons.
Wow.
That was 2004. And what they saw, though, is as soon as technology came in, kids weren't drawing, they weren't using that type of creativity, but they were using a different type of creativity. And what you said is the positive association, right? So we create beliefs within ourselves from a very young age. We put our, sometimes people put labels on us, sometimes we do. And it's in there. I mean, those studies show, and if you think back to when you were a kid, nothing was impossible. Our brains, I mean, we pretended, we played, we imagined. And if we can continue to tap back into that, like you were saying, and it goes into the power of Molo, right? Because you have to understand first and foremost what you can do, what's possible before you could ever get there. So
yeah, I love that.
So let's talk about the philosophy of Molo.
Let's do. Well, first of all, I love that it's so simple, right? It's Molo, and here at Modally, it's really where I've really adopted it. I've always had some form of this in my management style and my leadership style of just really pressing people to dig into what they want to be, what they want to do, how they want to live. But of late, social media has become a thing. Gen Z and millennials are in the workplace, and they thrive when they're given tools and given direction and given purpose. And the other thing is, it's a ton of fun. I'm a Gen Xer, and I just love bringing life and joy into the workplace. And so when I hear people in the company and on my team say YOLO, and I had a YOLO moment this weekend, Molo just fits so well into that and just resonates so clearly and so easily with so many people. It just becomes something that's very, one, memorable, but two, it's very powerful. And Molo means more of and less of. And it's sort of this dichotomy of, think of a yin and yang, of finding this balance in harmony. What am I going to do more of? What am I going to do less of? And where you can connect the two together, either in a personal setting or a professional setting, it becomes so powerful in terms of being able to move yourself forward and achieve the things that you want to achieve.
So where did the concept originate from?
So the actual term Molo came out of a leadership training that I did a few years ago with Daikin, who's our parent company, and it was sort of put in this toolkit that we were given with 15 or 20 other tools, and the trainer did a fantastic job of describing each of them, and he essentially said, pick one or two that work for you. And for whatever reason, that one just became the one that I said, you know what, I don't need 30 tools right now. I don't need 40 tools right now. It's overwhelming. I'm a big proponent, my team will tell you this, I'm a big proponent of one thing. And so I just said, I'm going to do one. And my one is going to be Molo, and I'm going to lean into it so hard that everybody's going to know what it is, and everybody's going to get used to it, and nobody's going to be confused what I'm going to ask them. And everybody on the team is going to work on that. And so that's what we did.
Did you have a hard time having any of your team members buy into it?
It's funny, I wouldn't say it was hard to buy into, more than it was sort of a surprise, sort of shock and awe look, like, sort of like, you want me to do what? The first time I described it, it was to each person, it was just sort of comical. And I continue to use it as I mentor others in the business, not just people on my team, of like, and it's funny, even at home, my wife kind of turns it around on me, and she's like, what are we going to do more of? What are we going to do less? Like, it just has become like, I feel like I need like a tattoo of Molo or something, right? But really not so much a lack of buy-in, more than just sort of a surprise, because I think because one, it's simple and it's powerful, but it's a new way, it's sort of a paradigm of thinking about actions and behaviors that I think it's a very tangible concept actually, because it's so simple.
So in order to have or to create a culture of Molo, or having an individual step into it, what do they need to do first?
You know, we just talked about this morning on my team meeting. You know, if you're going to achieve a goal and celebrate a success and a win, you need to define what success means. You need to define what a goal is. And otherwise, what are you actually aiming at? And so a key piece of Molo is really just to define very simply, what are you trying to achieve? And this could be as simple as, I want to eat healthier. That's a more of. The converse of that is, I'm going to eat less junk food, right? That's that yin and yang effect in action. So when you go to reach for junk food, you end up saying, no, I was going to do less of that. And you've already programmed yourself with a replacement behavior. You've already said, instead of going to the bad thing, I'm going to do the good thing. And it becomes this, that's where the power is in the simplicity, right? Because it becomes this self-fulfilling sort of prophecy of goal achievement and building into the conclusion that you want. I'm going to do more of this thing and less of this thing. And when you do them together, you can achieve the result. But really, it's just defining what the goal is to achieve it. And it's really quite simple.
Well, and I love what you said, because with a goal, that means, you know, if there's a direction to go. So many times we just go on this rat race of life. You know, you're an essential business. Your business never shut down. In fact, it just ramped up.
Yeah, well, and you see people behind me in masks, and the team and the company is still going. Yeah, we had we were blessed and are very grateful to have had a very strong year. We recognize that others have not had that good fortune, but we feel very grateful that we were able to help perform essential services in terms of keeping HVAC systems clean, keeping people's houses clean, doing repairs and replacements with our contractor network, and just really ensuring that you know, the world can keep going and keep operating, and these buildings and apartments and houses can stay healthy through this. Really a challenge, but it's really been a joy to watch the Modally team step up and bring it every day through 2020, because we were, as I was telling you, we celebrate our fiscal year end this month, and we're going to have a celebration tomorrow, and it's also the 1-year anniversary of when we closed our office. And you can see behind me, there's people walking around, there's people doing things. We're partially in the office. I'm in here in a conference room by myself, but Mary, you know, before we got on, I had my mask on. You know, we practice CDC guidelines. We have all the checks and balances in place. So yeah, it's definitely not been an easy year, particularly to manage through, but it's certainly been a rewarding one. I won't say that 2020 was hard or bad. I think in our business and in my personal life and professional life, I've embraced the difficulty and the uncomfortableness and really have looked for areas where I can change and grow, and that is it's really been something.
Well, going back into the Molo mindset, is you have to have that clear vision, yet knowing your culture and knowing how fast and hard Modally runs, and there's always something happening. There are times, this is just my assumption, that it's hard to apply Molo when there's so many fires that you're putting out. So how do you keep that front and center when there's so many different things going and there's just this rat race?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is a high intensity business. It's a high speed business, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I absolutely love the energy and the intensity of it. Every day matters, every hour matters to every person here. We're constantly working to the point where, you know, we get service calls overnight. We need to be in and out of a house in less than 24 hours, job done, and we're doing it all remotely. So it is a very high intensity business. The simplicity is really part of what helps. Molo is a very simple thing. focus is what helps to ensure that, you know, each person that's participating in this with me has, okay, what's my more of? Okay, what's my less of? I have weekly, quick 30-minute one-on-ones with my team. First 10 minutes, we talk about what their list. Next 10 minutes, my turn. Next 10 minutes, Molo. And every single week it's that. And so we have conversations every week about, okay, what are you going to do more of this week? What served you? What brought you closer to your goal? What are you going to do more of that brings you even farther towards your goal? Whatever that goal is. Maybe it's progressing a client. Maybe it's progressing a deal. Maybe it's working cross-functionally or having a better relationship with one area of the company, or building a relationship with an area of the company that will be important to a future client relationship. What are your things that you can tangibly say, I'm going to achieve this in the next 5 business days? And then conversely, we say, okay, so what are you going to do less of? What actions and behaviors are not serving you and are pulling you away from those goals? And where I love the power of this is when people connect and it clicks that they're intertwined. And that if I do more of one thing, that means I have to do less of another. And so it's that sort of simplistic focusing effect that just creates change. And when you do this, what I've seen is now doing this for more than a year, every single week, the change is very real. We've, as a team, we've progressed professionally and personally in ways that are just astounding. I mean, people are having personal victories on a monthly basis of just, I'm going to do more of this and less of this. I don't have to talk about that anymore. I've achieved it. I put in a replacement behavior. It's done. I'm on to the next thing. And it's been a very powerful growth tool just because of that sort of metronome of consistency. Everybody knows we're going to talk about it every single week.
So do they, when you talk about it, do they also have an accountability system where it's like, so how did you do on it last week? So they have to.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Well, and that's exactly the question is, you know, where did you fall down? Where did you have an opportunity to do more of and you did it? And where did you have an opportunity to not do that? And, you know, where did you sort of fail? And so that Molo concept, it almost has like accountability built directly into it, right? It's because it's just such a simple concept. You can tell how much I love it because it's so simple, but it creates its own accountability, because if you're not doing more of, it's probably going to hit your less of list. And if you're not doing less of, it's probably going to hit your more of list. And so it's almost got its own accountability built into it.
And what is so simple. And I'm thinking about this, and there's things that I've done in the past with it, but to have it front and center and to have it as a tool that everyone's using, it gets you focused on, wait a minute, we're more efficient, because we, you know, typically human nature, we go to the things of least resistance. We go to the things that are easy. We go to the things that are fun. And going back into what you were saying about vision and goals, you have to know this is the target that I'm hitting. Yeah. And then it becomes priority. So in order to do this, and studies show that with any habit or any behavior that you're changing, you don't just cut it off.
Absolutely.
And it's exactly what you're saying. You have to fill it up with something. So if I'm doing less of this, what is replacing it? And to take it into a business concept is so powerful. So give us some examples of where someone was really struggling and you actually helped walk them through this process and they saw the results.
Yeah. So I think, you know, one of the things that we've seen is as salespeople is just wanting to be very confident in front of clients and very polished in front of clients. And so a number of the Molos that I've had with people on my team in sales leadership I want to be more confident in front of a client. I want to be more calm in front of a client. I want to be more clear in front of a client. And so we unpack that and okay, so how do you feel like you can be more clear? What are things you can do to be more clear? Well, I should work on my pitch in advance. Okay, great. So that's your new Molo, you're going to spend more time prepping for client calls. Okay, so then great, that's a more of, and you're going to spend less time worried about how you're perceived by clients, because honestly, you present very well, and this is your internal growth, which is great. And then a week goes by. Okay, so let's talk. How did you think you did this week? Well, I prepared for this call and it went really well. And that particular call, I agreed for this rep. It was awesome. The preparation was clear. It was head and shoulders better. And that positive reinforcement just snowballs to the point where those are just now behaviors that just happen every time. They just happen every time.
You're drilling down. So you're getting down to the root. What's going on right now? What do you need? And it's addressing, okay, these are my concerns, but this is what I have to do. And preparation, the more we are prepared, it takes away the fear of not being good enough.
It's amazing. It's amazing. More preparation, less fear. More of, less of.
Well, and everything you're doing is focused on controllables. And when we can control what we do, that's what sets us up for success. So many times, companies, individuals, they'll look at what they call the lag measure. So it's the end, right? It's the goal. It's the result, but they're not focused on the lead measures, which is the actions which you're talking about. What can I control to create that lag measure?
Exactly.
And you simplified it so well to like it's in my brain. Like it's
well, it really is important as a leader to have very clear, very simple goals. As soon as I've been told, because I have people I report to too, right? And when I have people come to me and they say, okay, you only have 4 goals, well 5, but these 4 are really important and these 2 are just sort of important. A year later, there's no way that, unless they're written down or literally you get a tattoo of them, right, that you're gonna remember those. And so I adopted this early in my career because I had an Italian boss who did this incredibly well, and he had 15 direct reports, and we were in 12 different countries. So simple was really, and he was English. He always used to joke was his 4th language. So simple for him was very important. And so each of us on his team, every year we had 1 goal, one. And one year, I think mine was like cross-functional communication. He wanted me to be able to communicate around the world in this role that I was in as clearly as possible, because he knew that was what was going to be important for me. And that was it. And you know what I was able to focus on that entire year? Every time I turned around, all I could think was, am I working on that? Am I doing that? Am I maximizing? It was it. And he had such a powerful team. And so I sort of feel like this is that Molo is that concept in a high-speed environment, right? We're a software company, we're a technology company, we're on agile software development cycles, we're releasing software every couple of weeks, just go. And so we bring that into everything, and this is no different. This is high intensity, high impact. Think of it as the cardio workout for your professional development, right? Molo, let's just talk about it every single week, but only for 10 minutes. That's it. That's all it takes. 10 minutes a week.
Well, and the one thing, I remember Gary Keller with Keller Williams, he wrote that book, The One Thing. And that concept is so powerful because when you focus on one thing, you know what you're focusing on. In fact, we're huge on studies and just information. And studies show that if you have 1 to 3 things and you're 100% focused on that, typically you can do the 1 to 3 things. You can definitely do the one thing. But when you get into 4 things, 4 to 9, you may do 1. And if you have more than 9, you won't do any, because we go into, like, our brain is scrambled eggs. And when you can chunk it down, drill it down to that one thing and that priority, you'll find so many things. Actually, there's layers within that one thing that is your two, 3.
Yeah.
So what's your one thing?
So mine is focus for this year. We're in a growth business, and I'm leading a team of highly intelligent, highly capable salespeople that are just crushing it every day. And we have thankfully more opportunities than we can put our hands on any given day. And so we literally can only have time for the biggest and the most fruitful. And so we are really focused on, and it's a growth business sort of thing. I mean, we have to say no to a lot of things, or like you just said, your brain just becomes scrambled because you just have too many things. It's like, well, should I talk to a client that has this many properties, or should I talk to a client that has 2? And it's not to say that the client that has 2 isn't important. It's just they're probably not a client for us where we're at, because we just simply don't have the bandwidth to support it in our world. And so focus for me is very key. And the thing I like about focus personally is that it extends outside of the professional world. It extends into my personal life and my internal life, right? Am I focusing on the right things at a given time? Am I present in the conversations I'm having with my family when I'm there? Am I focused on the person that's in front of me? Am I focused on the right things? Am I focused on eating right and being healthy and getting enough sleep and resting and relaxing and recharging? Am I focused on the right things? So focus for me really takes a number of branches, but they all are sort of like, there's this constant reminder of like, where can I do more focus, and where have I fallen down focus? Where have I lacked focus? And so that just sort of course correction. I joke with people that it's sort of like the bumpers on the bowling alley, right? Is what am I going to do more of? Let's tap that here. What am I going to do less of? Let's just try to keep it down the center of the bowling alley here. And so for me, that word is focus.
So where's your greatest challenge, your greatest area for improvement with focus?
I think this is true for probably a lot of leaders. Self-observation and honesty and transparency is a challenge, but it's so critical to being authentic, to being real, to being a human, to just, it's easy to read a management book and turn into, a management robot, right? Where you just, did you do this? Okay, no, well, then this happens, right? And just turns into this mechanical thing that's just gross. And so I think being authentic and being very self-aware and truly transparent with yourself is a constant challenge, and something that I'm continuously working on. It's just a lot of self-reflection. Like, did I handle that moment properly? Did I not? And again, see, there's Molo again. There it is. Did I handle it right, or did I not? And it's this balance of those moments, I think, that have been very powerful for me.
So do you self-reflect every day?
I do. I actually spend the end of every day, and it's even booked out on my calendar now. I spend the end of every day writing down what are the things that need to be achieved the next day, and what things are open, and just sort of finishing out the day's activities. That is proved to be a very, very powerful focus exercise, because it allows me to close the book at the end of the day. It allows me to know that I've completed what I can, but also that I'm prepared for the next day. And then I can be present in my own life at the end of the day, which has been very, very helpful. And especially in COVID, it's been, we sort of all have this low level stress over the last year. And so anywhere that, we can find areas to lower stress or reject stress, I think have been critically important for everyone, but in particular leaders, because so many people look to us sort of that safety net and that comfort zone. And so if we're not exuding low stress, high confidence, no one's going to feel it, right? And everyone's going to start to kind of feel that sort of low level stress that we're all dealing with in the world these days. Thankfully, it's looking up, right? I mean, lots of positive things have happened. Lots of changes are going on that are contributing to brighter days. But a year ago, boy, it was. I'm sure I'm not alone in feeling like I was standing in an Armageddon movie and just not really knowing what was happening. No groceries on the shelves. All the restaurants are shut down. The hospitals are overwhelmed. All the news reports were just terribly negative. It's just, a year in review is, I've spent so much time focusing on stress relief and stress reduction and managing that. It's just, I'm ready to, and I was even telling my wife this the other day, I'm shifting my focus now to focus.
Oh, you're shifting your focus. I was like, tell me, I thought you were telling a story.
No. Yeah, shifting my focus.
I'm just not, my focus to focus. Got it.
I love the irony in it.
I know. So I actually want to bring, when you were talking a year ago and the Modally Cares initiative.
Oh, sure.
How did that come into play?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, I came out of a 3-day, 4-day, no phone leadership session with you and a team into a world that had changed overnight, into a world that was shut down and flights were canceled and restaurants were closing and hospitals were full. And the world was in total paranoia. The stock market was crashing. I mean, you name it, it was sort of happening, right? The streets were abandoned. No one was driving. Everyone was at their house. People were stockpiling food. I mean, it was
Toilet paper.
It was chaos, right? Yeah, toilet paper was on a huge run. It was utter chaos. And all I could think of, how can I help? How can I help? And in our group of family and friends, my wife and I are foodies. We love restaurants. There's a number of restaurants that we just love going to and supporting. And we saw them shuttering and their livelihoods being disrupted. We have family and friends in healthcare, and we heard stories about full wings of hospitals getting cleared out to make room for hospital beds, and that's intense. So it was sort of like, how do we combine these things? And I'd seen some posts from some friends and things on Instagram about, well, there's these little, like, sort of this pop-up movement of like buying food from a restaurant and then delivering it to the frontline workers. And I thought, that is genius. And so I tapped into my like to build mode, and my wife was kind of making fun of me. She's like, oh boy, he's on one of his things again. And I set up a website. I bought a URL. I set up a website. It was called Den Cares at the time. Bought a website, set up a URL, set up the website, put in a donation portal in a weekend, and started just sort of posting about it in social media. The president of Motili here caught wind of it and said, you know what, I'm in, and gave a generous donation. And then he sent it around to the company, and then the company started to support it. And then all of a sudden, every week, we had teams of people at Modally in both Denver and New York that were delivering hundreds of meals to local hospitals. So it was sort of a double impact, where we're buying food from a restaurant, supporting their business, and then delivering it to frontline workers. I had restaurant workers call me and thanking me. I had owners call me and say, you just employed my staff for a week. We dropped stuff off at the hospital. I had a hospital CEO call me and say, you have no idea what impact you made to the front line this week. They had a bad week. And to walk into a warm meal made a difference.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And now it's become what we call Modally Cares, which is awesome, because even this week, there's boxes behind me. I'm not sure if you can see them, but it's now this thing that is just created. And we've seen the homeless problem increase in Denver as a result of the pandemic and people losing their houses and things. So we're buying in socks and gloves and hand warmers, energy bars and bottles of water and little drawstring bags and all these. And this Wednesday, we're going to be assembling these kits for the homeless here in Denver as a team, and everybody will go home with 5 or 10 of these to just distribute in their community. If you see someone who needs a hand on your walk to work, give them a bag. One person even encouraged, her name's Ree, she encouraged everybody to write little notes inside of these of encouragement to put in these bags. It's great. So it's really turned into this organic thing that everybody's gotten behind, and it's just so exciting. And it's just really been great to create positivity amongst all of the sort of things that are going on. You know, it's been this low level stress, and the only way I could think of to sort of like put it behind me was to just step into it and through it and just do what I know how to do, which is create. And I just had to. I didn't see. I couldn't cope. I wasn't gonna I couldn't sit on the couch. I can't. It drives my wife crazy. I can't just sit on the couch and be idle. It's not my personality. I had to do something. So that's what I did.
Well, and I love your heart, you know, just as what can I do? And I remember having that conversation, and to see what's happened as a result, you know, it only takes one person. Like it only takes one person to start change.
Yeah.
And I remember when it went into Modally Cares, it's, so how does that make you feel? And you're like, I don't care. You know, it really becomes into the more of less of, right? You're the idea guy. You're the guy that has all this creativity, and you love growth, but you love to bring a team. You like to have
one of our engineers who does graphic design and UI UX design spun up a logo overnight. He got so inspired by it, he spun up a logo and a color palette. Our marketing team put social media posts out, so we got other donations coming in, and the restaurants were getting donations in from their own things, and people buying, knowing that we were going to put a donation in. They were putting it on their social media feeds. We had people across the company, from software development to finance to sales, that were doing the deliveries and were involved. And now it's turned into a thing where this homeless kit that we're putting together, I'm barely just watching. I'm just watching the team create, and to me, that's my motivation. Where we started this, right, is to empower people to create is what drives me and fills me and thrills me. Honestly, I love it. I just love it. I love this creation. I love this, you know, sticking your head out of the window of a train, going to a place that you've never been. Love that.
Yeah. Well, and just listening to you, and I can just feel your passion, right? You can't fake this. This is like, it's just coming out of you, and you are created to create, right? And to bring that team alongside of you. And it really then becomes the Molo philosophy. You have to have a vision. You have to know where you're going. And then is, what can we do more of so that we can see less of this?
Exactly. What serves you? What doesn't? In that goal, what is serving you and what is not? And how do you put those two in balance so that, you know, that progression becomes more rapid? And it's such a simple, powerful tool. It's been incredible.
So I have a question for you. And if anyone else has questions, please put them either in the chat. You can put it in the Facebook Live. So how important is culture and balancing work and fun at Modally?
That's an awesome question. And it is incredibly important. I'm sure that many of us have worked in companies that have not had culture or have not talked about culture. And when you do that, the culture it becomes what the culture is. And oftentimes that can be very, very negative. And one thing that we do at Modally that I think is very atypical is we spend a lot of time actively focusing on culture. Modally Cares is a great example. Another great example is, even in the room I'm in, there's words above my head that talk about what elements are important to Modally culture. And those are things like taking action and being accountable and taking care of people. We have ongoing meetings about culture. We bring in, games and we have cornhole tournaments here at the office. We did a putt-putt challenge one week. In the pandemic, we did these ridiculous happy hours on Fridays where we would have costume contests, and our CEO dressed up as Dr. Corona the second week and blew everybody's mind that that was sort of the goal, and they became increasingly ridiculous and more fun. We recorded music videos. We have coffee talks where the leaders will, call a half hour in the morning. We've had leadership panels where, Mary, you've been part of. We've had authors, renowned authors, join us on Monday mornings to, talk about things. We intentionally focus on culture because it's important. Because if you don't have one. And if you say you have one when you don't focus on it, you don't have a good one. In fact, you just saw someone walk by with a Nerf gun over their shoulder behind me, because that's the sort of irreverence of Modally. This is such a fun place to work because we've made it that way. We've been determined that it's going to be that way. And if you're not intentional about something, it won't happen. So we make sure that we're intentional about culture here.
What is the easiest thing? So the one thing, if people are looking at how do you create or improve a culture, what's one thing that they can do more of or less of?
People should stop worrying about what others think or about what this, HR department is going to think about something. And I do that because, there's this sort of mantra in corporate America that you can't have fun at work, and it's a lie. It's a lie. You can have fun at work. You can work and deliver and still have fun. So I would say just lean into allowing yourself the opportunity to do that. Set up a happy hour with your coworkers on a virtual thing. We started doing that with a coffee talk. We did a Monday morning coffee. We did a Friday afternoon happy hour, and those became the anchors when we were all remote. And many of our team members said that they never felt so connected to their company, even when we were in the office. So these simple acts of just connecting with each other and having fun. So more of having fun, less of worrying about who's going to think what about the activity. And that's not to say that, we do anything that's reckless. We don't. But, you can still have fun. And that's the point, is there's time for work and there's time to connect. And you have to have these two things in balance of focusing on culture and focusing on results, because they feed each other very well.
How do you create balance? So, knowing this is most of it is focused on the professional life, yet you also have this team. Some of them are still working from home. You have a blended work, home and office. So how does it apply to personal life? How do you create balance within your team members?
Yeah, it's a challenge, and I think we all face it. Mary, you're in a home office. My wife's in a home office right now and has been for a year. But I think it's really, again, just around being intentional about it. How do I, I'm going to spend less time working past 5 p.m. and more time having a glass of wine with my wife. There's a Molo in real life, right? And that being that sort of boundary setting. And I think that's where the power of this tool can be, because you can use it in a personal life, you can use it in a professional life. It's so simple, so simple. And everybody loves yelling YOLO, so I'm trying to get everybody to yell Molo.
Molo. I have another question. How important is it for leadership to be involved in spreading and improving culture?
It comes from the top. It comes from the top. It has to be deliberate. It is absolutely critical that leaders embrace culture and that leaders drive culture. Because if they don't, then it's just sort of like it's not seen as actually being important. And it doesn't have to be a heavy time investment. but it needs to be an intentional investment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have 10 minutes left, and I'm just gonna put it off. Any other last thoughts or ideas? That I would say this is your soapbox. And as you're speaking, if any last minute questions come in, we'll give them to you.
No, I think just to summarize Molo, it really is about what are the things that act in balance with each other. So a couple of examples I wrote down. I'm going to focus on really important projects. That's a more of. And less time sending unimportant emails. See what that does? All of a sudden you say, I'm not going to be a slave to email. I'm going to spend the majority of my day focusing on truly productive work, on the things that move the ball forward and not the rest. And I'm going to be deliberate about not just spending time replying to every email because I feel like that's the priority. That's not a priority. That's a shift. I'm going to bring my phone to less meetings so I can do a better job of focusing at the task at hand. Feel the power of that? You leave your phone at your desk, you go into a meeting, all of a sudden, one-on-one, right? 100% focus, 100% present, power. There's power in that. I'm going to push myself to lead more company discussions because I need to have less self-doubt. This inner confidence comes from stepping out of your comfort zone and into your growth zone and allowing yourself to step away from the fear. And those two work together, right? To have more confidence, you have to have less fear. And so reject the fear and embrace the confidence. Power Molo.
Well, and just those examples alone, it goes back into deliberate action. So you have to know what you want. You have to see what you want more of and really own it. This is what I need to do less of. And then it is taking action and stepping into, I am committed to doing this.
Absolutely.
Because it's one thing to say it, and it's actually another thing to do it.
Yeah. Yep. And that's where that sort of accountability cycle is so great, is it creates the positive reinforcement of doing less of something reinforces doing more of something. And before you know it, it's become self-sustaining, and you can be on to the next Molo.
Well, and it's a team. So it's not just one person can do this, but it's so much easier and so much more effective when you have a group of people talking the same language and doing the same thing. It creates a different level of accountability, and we need that. Human nature, we do so much better together than we do as an individual. I have another question for you. So how has Bold impacted your personal life outside of the office?
It has, I think what's really, I hit on it before, but I think what, true leadership programs do, like Bold, is force you to be very self-aware and very transparent and become the best version of yourself. And when you do that, either personally or professionally, it affects both sides. So there's no way you can be a better leader in many cases without being better at home and in your family life. And if you're only focused on work and being a better leader, and you're not focused at home, then you're out of balance, and that's bad. And so you've got to find, for me, it's helped find balance and be transparent with myself and what's important. And my family is every bit as important as work, and in fact, even quite a bit more important. And sometimes that balance wasn't always there. And I think a lot of leaders feel that way because, you derive livelihood from, your work, but livelihood is different than life. And so having those in balance is so important.
I love that. Livelihood is different than life. So true. All right, I'm going to put up the last poll, and this is just the feedback. And if you know anyone, if you want to be a speaker on this, let me know. If you know someone who would be a fantastic guest, we would love to hear from them. We love bringing thought leaders, and just Sallee, I am so excited that you said yes. I love your mind. I love the ideas that you bring. You are truly that creative mindset. Like, you bring and you breathe growth, and it's not just, this is me. It's always about other people. It's, how do I help? Here's an idea, but how do I help other people soar? And that's really what this is about, giving us tips and tools, going, I haven't thought about that. Or maybe in the back of my mind, I heard that somewhere, but this is reinforcing. So, bringing leadership now to the community. We love people like you. So thank you for showing
Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh.
It was a real pleasure. It's always great to connect with you, Mary. And I really appreciate the kind words, but I hope if anybody took anything away from this that was positive, then it was time well spent. And so I hope everybody goes out and finds areas to Molo as they leave today.
Absolutely. Well, have a great rest of your day, your rest of your week, and thanks again. And we will see you. Actually, next week we won't be on. I'm in the middle of a training, so we will do it in 2 weeks. We will see you 2 weeks from today. Have a great day.
Mary.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.